I did not expect to survive the mission. I'd made my peace with that, with someone holding my hand like she'd been doing it for days.
Scene 1. The mission. Lieutenant Commander Jace Harlow had accepted the mission with the clear-eyed realism of someone who has read the probability assessments and has decided that the numbers are what they are and dwelling on them serves no useful purpose. The Vel'Shari border station had gone dark 4 days ago. All personnel unaccounted for. The Galactic Accord's rapid response teams had assessed the situation, run their own probability models, and collectively decided that the risk profile was outside their operational parameters. Which was when the request went out to Earth Systems, because Earth Systems had a unit, not widely advertised, whose operational parameters were defined less by probability and more by necessity. Jace was part of that unit. Had been for 8 years. The mission was simple in structure. Go in. Determine what happened. Extract any survivors. Ideally exit without adding to the list of unaccounted personnel. He was the only member of his team who had made it to the extraction point. He didn't remember the extraction. He remembered making the point. Then he remembered nothing for what turned out to be 4 days. Scene 2. Waking up. The ceiling was white. The light was soft. Something was humming in the specific way that medical equipment hums when it is doing its job correctly, which his brain parsed before he had consciously decided to be awake. He was in a medical bay. Not Earth Systems. The architecture was wrong, the equipment was wrong, the quality of the light was wrong in the particular way that alien-designed spaces often were when you knew what Earth-designed spaces felt like. He was also not alone. Someone was holding his hand. He turned his head, carefully, because experience had taught him that turning your head too fast after a period of unconsciousness is a way to discover which parts of your body have opinions about the recent events, and found her. She was sitting in a chair beside the bed, leaning slightly forward, her other hand resting on the edge of the mattress. She was asleep. Dark purple-black hair loose from what had probably been a ponytail, falling around her face in the careless way of someone who had stopped caring about appearances at some point in the last however long. She was in a red uniform he didn't recognize. Small badge. Purple-blue skin, pointed ears. The particular build of a Vel'Shari medical officer. She was holding his hand with both of hers, in the light, careful way of someone who has been doing this for a while and has decided it matters. He looked at his hand in hers for a long moment. Then he looked at the ceiling. Well, he thought, this is new. Scene 3. Dr. Solen. The blue-skinned doctor who introduced himself as Dr. Solen arrived approximately 40 minutes later, by which point Jace had been awake, had conducted a careful self-assessment of his physical status, and had concluded that he was doing considerably better than the mission probability had suggested he would be doing. Dr. Solen held up a transparent holographic tablet with the cheerful confidence of someone who enjoys delivering good news and had been looking forward to this particular delivery. The tablet displayed a human body diagram in glowing blue. The text beside it read, 100% healthy. Remarkable, Dr. Solen said with genuine enthusiasm. Truly. Your recovery rate has been the subject of considerable discussion in this medical bay, Lieutenant Commander. The injuries you arrived with. He shook his head. We were not certain. But here you are. Here I am, Jace agreed. Dr. Solen's expression acquired a secondary quality. Warm, slightly knowing. Lieutenant Nyra has not left this bay in 4 days, he said. I want you to know that, in case it is relevant context. Jace looked at the chair beside the bed, which was currently empty because Nyra had woken up approximately 20 minutes ago, assessed the situation with the brisk efficiency of someone who is embarrassed to have been found asleep by the person they were watching, and gone to, she said, inform the commanding officer. It's relevant, he said. Dr. Solen smiled the smile of a doctor who has watched the particular thing that had apparently happened in this medical bay, and has the professional good sense not to comment on it directly. Scene 4, the palace. He was cleared for discharge 3 days later, which Dr. Solen emphasized was exceptional, which was a word he had started using about Jace's biology with a specific wonder of someone encountering data they hadn't expected. The Vel'Shari command had scheduled a formal debriefing at the palace complex on Vel'Shari, the nearest inhabited system, where the surviving personnel from the border station had been transported and where the Accord's incident investigation was now centered. Nyra was his assigned escort. She walked beside him with the formal precision of an officer on duty and the slightly different quality of someone who was managing the overlap between officer on duty and whatever the last 4 days had been with conscious effort. They did not talk much on the transport. They talked enough. She explained the situation briefing in the efficient shorthand of a Vel'Shari military officer, covering the border station, the investigation status, the political dimensions. He listened and asked the right questions, and they were both professional, and neither of them mentioned the hand-holding. The palace was white and gold and old in the way that Vel'Shari architecture was often old, built for centuries and expecting to last several more. Wide corridors, high ceilings, the light that came through alien windows at alien angles. He was shown to quarters. Told the debriefing would be in the morning. Left to settle. He stood at the window and watched the Vel'Shari evening come in across the city and thought about probability assessments and the specific mathematics of outcomes that defy them. Scene 5, the running. He heard her before he saw her. Not the sound of someone walking, the sound of someone who has decided that walking is not fast enough and has moved to a different option. Through the corridor, past the formal reception hall, toward the residential wing where the human guest quarters were located. He turned from the window. Nyra came through the door, not quite running, which would have been undignified, but something very close to it, the momentum of someone who has made a decision about 6 corridors ago and has been closing the distance since. She stopped 3 feet from him.